Good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. First, let me say what a privilege it is to be back in Spain and take part in this very important event today. Spain is not only, as we saw with these impressive figures, it's one of Europe's leading automotive nations. My own company, we have operations here since decades, and we're in the process of investing more than 1 billion euro into our van operations in Vitoria to set it up, to take a lead in terms of technology, but also production readiness and flexibility for the change and the transformation that we're talking about. So I think we couldn't have picked a better time to come together and reflect a little bit what's going on in the European auto industry and what needs to happen. And especially, I listened carefully, Minister, good to see you again, to some of the remarks that you made and how I think we can translate some of that thinking into what I believe needs to happen on a European level. But let me say this first in terms of why is this so important? Not only is the automotive industry a leading industry in Spain and is important for Spain's economy, it is the biggest industry in Europe. 7% of GDP, more than 13 million jobs. 1/3 of all private R&D investment, 1/3 is the automotive industry. There you can see what a dominant factor it is, how important it is as a backbone of Europe's economy and also Europe's innovation potential. That as a first point of a backdrop, it is crucial that Europe gets its policies for the automotive industry right if we want to keep this economic strength and all the jobs that are associated with it. Second point to set the stage is we are fully committed as a European auto industry, manufacturers and suppliers towards a zero-emission future. Nobody is debating that. Nobody is debating the Paris Climate Agreement and the ultimate target of a net carbon neutral position in 2050. In fact, we are the industry of all industries that have, in the most extensive way, put our money where our mouth is. In the last 5 or 6 years, the automotive industry in Europe, both manufacturers and suppliers, have invested over 300 billion euro into electrification and decarbonization. And in spite of the fact that the market adoption has not been as fast as most of us thought 5, 6, 7 years ago, and that many suppliers are sitting on stranded assets, and also manufacturers are struggling to get the returns that originally was underpinning the business cases for these 300 billion. We're not retreating. We're not saying, oh, that did not work. Let's take a pause and see what's going on. In spite of that, in the pipeline for the next 5 years, towards the end of this decade, there is another 250 billion. So if there is an industry, a private player, that is dedicated and motivated to this transformation, we are the one. So what's the but, and where are the things that we need to think about policy? It's clear if you operate not just in Europe but on a global stage. In the case of Mercedes-Benz, we serve 150 plus markets. You quickly realize that the path towards ultimate zero emission is a very heterogeneous path. Every single market has their own consumer preferences, their own infrastructure issues, their incentive policies, etc., etc. So from a Norway that has decided with a massive amount of taxpayers' money to go all in, to other markets where it's going slower, it's clear that if you're a player on the industrial side, and I'm going to pick up on a couple of words that you said, Prime Minister, that during this next 10, 15, 20-year period, you need to have a clear vision of where you're going, but you need flexibility and you need pragmatism. If you don't have that, you will not be able to navigate this heterogeneous landscape. Now, if that was the only task we had, if the transformation of the auto industry was the only task we had, once in 100 years, going zero emission, digitizing the product, making the product an intelligent machine, like an intelligent robot on wheels. That would be enough to keep us busy from morning till evening. But it's happening in an environment where there are other pressure points that affect Europe's economy, that affect Europe's energy costs, that affect global trade. I've been with Mercedes-Benz for 33 years now. I don't think I've ever experienced a situation. There have been ups and downs in the auto industry and financial crisis and this, that, and the other. But I don't think I've experienced a time where there are so many balls in the air and so many factors that influence what's going on. And this is happening while we're going through a once-in-100 years transformation. So we have to be mindful about that it is economic strength that underpins our innovation strength and our ability to decarbonize. There's an increasing and more heated debate now about made in Europe, European preference. What does that really mean? I want to pick up on a chart that the president of ANFAC showed. He showed, unfortunately, that in the last 6-7 years, the production has gone down in Europe. The sales have gone down in Europe. And at the same time, in the other two big economic areas, in North America and the United States, it's gone up. In China, it has gone dramatically up. So before we talk about made in Europe, an intelligent level playing field, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm so afraid of using the word protectionism because history tells that often protectionism has not yielded the result that you originally wanted. The reason why we're in this situation where we have lost the jobs, lost the factories, is because we have made our own market smaller. We haven't had economic policies in Europe that have promoted growth, and we have had an increasing, overburdening regulation that makes it more difficult for industries and companies to do business and more expensive, made the product more expensive, and has led to a historically old car park. Europe used to be the leaders of making small, affordable, cool cars. Spain is one of those leaders. It's just too expensive to do that in Europe nowadays. That is the reason why we are in a relative weaker position economically compared to those other two. And then come the competition. But first of all, if you're a fan of Real Madrid, you expect them to win the home games at least, and a lot of the away games as well. Now, we have weakened our ability to win the home games. That, in my point of view, would be priority number one. That the Chinese auto industry and that Chinese market, if you're in that market, and we are in that market, you quickly find out that that is the most competitive, most fiercely fought battle in any market in the automotive industry in the world. If you can survive there, you can probably survive anywhere. It is not surprising that these guys, the entrepreneur there, go like, okay, even though we have the biggest market in the world, we're going to see the world. In 1886, Gottlieb Daimler and Carl Benz invented the car. The founding fathers of our company. In 1886, we're celebrating 140 years this year. In 1888, Gottlieb Daimler set up shop in the United States, 2 years after the invention of the car. So let's not think that in a globally integrated system that we're not going to meet competition. We're going to meet it everywhere. Of course, it needs to be fair. Of course, as a European and as a European manufacturer and European association, we want our industrial base, our innovation base to be strong. The only thing that we need to think about is when we devise policy to do this, let's be careful, let's be precise, and let's make sure that we don't have unintended consequences of maybe a too crude policy. In this particular area, there is not unity, 100% unity between the manufacturers and the suppliers, because different companies have different strategies. Some have global footprints, some are more regional. But we're working inside ACEA to create a position, a common denominator of some principles that we need to apply when we do this. From that backdrop, as we're talking about protectionism, and in our mind, it's mainly directed towards the Chinese. At the same time, we're acting in other ways, which I think is encouraging. Mercosur, 25 years in the making. Yes, did we stumble on the goal line, or we're now going to carry the ball into the goal here? I believe we will. And also the free trade agreement with India. These are inspiring things. that will ultimately help Europe to grow and opens up market and gives the strong companies in Europe a chance to build their base. So this direction is positive. It's a little bit strange that it's happening at the same time as some political forces are quite vocal about protectionism. And again, it's about balance and using policy in the right way. Coming back to competitiveness. When I read the Letta report and then the Draghi report, and one almost cannot believe that it's almost 2 years ago that these have been written. I thought to myself, that was a pretty honest, harsh assessment and inventory of where Europe stands. And there was a whole list of proposals, many of which surely are not politically particularly popular, not something that you would use in a campaign to win an election, but necessary nevertheless. If there's one thing that I think we need to take from this report, and I know there was a meeting on the, was it Thursday of last week, where the European Commission came together with the different companies talking about European competitiveness, and I know that Mario Draghi was there. If there's one thing that I think we need to do now is to actually accelerate that agenda. How much of it has actually been done? Some of it has been done, let's not just be negative. Some of it has been done, but has enough been done, and is the speed of implementation of those proposals fast enough? As an automotive industry, we would like to see that speed increase. Strengthen our competitiveness, strengthen our growth policies, win the home game, and then we can see how many of the away games we can win as well to win the championship. On the 16th of December, the Commission published a new proposal with regard to 2035 and also some adjustments here and there on 2030, where the emotional issue of should we have a complete ban of the previous technology, combustion-based vehicles, and mandate to the customer that the only thing the customer can buy as of 2035 essentially are electric vehicles, or should we open up for some flexibility and pragmatism? On the surface, when you read what they wrote, with this going from 100% to 90% with some mechanism, you could say, yeah, okay, there's a little bit of flexibility, there's a little bit of pragmatism. But if you read the fine print, and if you're in the industry and you know how the cycles work in the industrialization, 7% compensation of green steel. Mercedes is one of the first companies, maybe the first company that started using green steel components. There is not a green steel company in the world that we don't know, and most of them we have a relationship with. If you just do a back of the envelope calculation that 7% of my CO2 footprint should be compensated by green steel in less than 9 years' time, whoever came up with that sentence either doesn't know what is industrially actually happening on the ground, a noble cause, the right ambition, the right direction, but very far away from industrial reality and what's actually happening. So I think to myself when I read it, don't they know, or do they do it intentionally to actually stifle the flexibility? Maybe it's a combination of both. What we are calling upon is to say, thank you for opening the door on the 16th of December. But now we got to get the fine print right. This year, through the Council and through the Parliament, we got to actually write the regulation that actually is going to work. And I thought to myself, I listened to you, Minister, and your inspiring speech. It's interesting that actually Spain itself is using investment into infrastructure, investment into technology, incentivizing investment into technology, and also incentivizing the consumer, especially where it's less affordable, to switch. I did not hear one single policy in the Spanish playbook that said, let's just mandate and tell the consumer what to do, not work primarily with incentives, and if it goes wrong, let's put penalties on one stakeholder, the producer. I didn't hear that in your speech, and it's not what Spain is doing. Investment into infrastructure, investment into technology, incentivization, a market-based approach to gradually nudge the market into green. That appears to be the game plan of Spain. Actually, it's also the game plan of China on a bigger scale, but it's their game plan. Why don't we use that game plan in Brussels? Why do we still stick with a fundamentally other method? It's a puzzle to me, and I think we need to change it. There's a lot of fine print on that as well, and I think you can debate that all day long. But don't forget the first slide that I put, 300 billion, 250 billion. It's not the debate about the destination. The destination is clear. Zero emission and intelligence. So the intelligent vehicle in whatever shape or form, automated driving, agentic smart cockpit, whatever it might be. That's the direction. That's where it's going. It's about the method, how to get there and not stifle growth and make it difficult to do business in Europe. Battery chain. The Asians are already here, and they have scaled, and they're global. I don't worry at all that we're not going to be able to motivate them to do more here. If we want to have a original European-born battery cell manufacturing, which is a question mark, I don't think there is any other choice than to do what the Chinese did for a long, long time, is to subsidize that both on the capex and on the opex side. That might be a politically difficult decision to make because you take taxpayers' money and subsidize business. If that doesn't happen, I believe that through the scale advantage the Asians have already, you never get through the valley of death of a startup company. We're waiting to see what the European Commission is going to present here. I think Commissioner Séjourné is working on this. Whatever is in that package is going to decide if there's going to be a European original one. There's definitely going to be an Asian one in Europe, together with us, together with suppliers and manufacturers. It's happening already. Important. Maybe I want to make one more point in this whole policy making. The auto industry is diverse in terms of its markets and market behavior. We slice it into three main slices. Passenger cars, everybody knows, most people have a car, have access to a car and so on. We know the behavior. We're consumers ourselves. We have light commercial vehicles, delivery services, electricians, ambulances, gardeners, whatever. The car is a tool. You don't buy it because you want it, you buy it because you need it. You need it to run your business. And then the heavy-duty vehicles. How do we get all those beautiful things that are made in Spain up to Germany? Well, they're mostly driven on a truck. In some cases, there's train and so on. But if you look at the transport of goods in Europe, by a wide margin, it is on wheels. The market dynamics of these three markets are not exactly the same. That is why in policy making, the policies, especially if you take the approach that we are suggesting, a market-based approach with investment in infrastructure, incentives and nudging, needs to be different for the different swim lanes. There is a different swim lane for heavy-duty vehicles, but it's bound to drive into the wall in 2030 already based upon the current regulation. I can only hope that that's being revisited. Light commercial vehicles or vans and cars were kind of bundled a little bit together. It's about the same, right? That looked maybe superficially right 6 or 7 years ago when that was thought out. Now that we see that the market is working differently, it's not right now. We need a different swim lane for LCVs. To give credit to the Commission, they took this point up in the proposal of the 16th of December. So it's in there, and we can start working with it. But I just mentioned at the beginning, we're spending more than $1 billion into our factory in Vitoria for the next generation architecture electric vans. There will also be a hybridized, highly efficient combustion version of that van as well. But we're leading with electric. Spain, the leading country. Vitoria, the leading plant in the Mercedes world to usher in this new era. Not only are we putting $1 billion into the plant, we're putting billions into this architecture. I want this to be successful. I would never have allowed the investment to go in if I didn't want it to be successful. But I don't think that the market in Europe, for every single corner of every single use case in Europe, is going to be 100% electric or 90% electric in less than 9 years' time. I think it's going to be dominant electric, I hope that. But it's not going to be 90 or not 100%. And if that is the regulation, the market's going to be smaller, people are going to hold on to their old product for longer, the car park will age, it's bad for decarbonization, and we will weaken Europe's economy, where we desperately need to get back to growth and economic strength. That's the point of ACEA, and that is what we want to do, and work with policymakers, both on a national level and on a European level, to get the fine print in that regulation right. Thank you very much.